like you said, he's got 3 rings, right? And just to clarify, none of those rings are with Toronto, right?
Is Fraser Minton going to have more points than Slavkovsky this year? Fraser Minton sucks at hockey. This guy might not even be an NHLer, so we got to settle down on that one.
Adelaide, no. Minus 160 on will they show her holding a drink in her hand.
They are 2 points behind the St. Louis Blues in the wild card, and they are.
Oh, the Blues are dog water. The Blues suck. The Blues are the worst of those 4 teams that I mentioned by a mile.
And
they're not a good hockey team.
Care, like have some set of balls, have some response, have some pride for what the hell goes on the ice. It's so absurd.
I'm looking forward to the parade, but that's going to be later in the year.
I'd rather have so money in that than have Arbor Soda Bomb. I would rather stack a bunch of garbage that I have in the corner of my room over here than have Arbor Soda Bomb in that. He's
June 5th, welcome back to Edgework, presented by Pinnacle. I'm Zack Phillips, joined here today by So Many Sports and Matt Alber for the Stanley Cup Finals preview. The Edmonton Oilers, the Florida Panthers about to duke it out on Saturday night for Game 1 of the Cup Finals. But before we get into best bets, series breakdowns, matchups, prices, all of that kind of stuff, I want to remind people that today's show, as always, is brought to you by Pinnacle Sportsbook. Pinnacle is the world's sharpest sportsbook, in business for 25 years. It is where the sharpest and best sports bettors play. You must be 19 plus. Please play responsibly. Not available in the U.S. Make sure to sign up at Pinnacle Sportsbook as we pull up series prices today, as we pull up futures odds, all that kind of stuff. It's going to be at Pinnacle Sportsbook. Best prices that you'll see for a lot of the time, whether it's game sides, totals, first periods, no matter what it is, it's going to be at Pinnacle Sportsbook as well. So make sure to add it to your list of outs today. Albert, let's go to you first. So Money, we got to hear your end of season review. Everybody's heard my end of season review. We have not yet had time to hear how you're feeling after the Rangers season came to an end. Let's just start there. You doing okay, man?
Yeah, we're doing all right. I mean, I kind of talked about it in the series preview that this is kind of how I thought it was going to play out. And I was very worried about how this series would go if the Rangers weren't able to turn every game into a track meet. Lo and behold, they were not able to turn these games into a track meet. Florida just suffocated them, just struggled to score near the end. So the result's not overly surprising. I mean, even look at it, like 3 overtime games you win 2, so you can't really blame like bad luck or anything like that. Florida, I mean, they're really good, right? And like I was certainly worried kind of going in that you look at them versus Carolina and they're going to be able to have a lot more success around the front of the net, and they did. And that was, to me, the difference in the series is that they were kind of able to battle around the front and get some goals like that, where the Rangers, for the most part, really weren't. I mean, you looked at a lot of their goals in the series, and a lot of them were, you had some on the power play, although it certainly struggled near the end. You had a lot of goals from shots that were high up. You had a couple deflections, but like Florida consistently scored from below the circles, and the Rangers didn't. And like, if it wasn't for how good Igor was, that series is probably done a lot earlier. You certainly don't get to overtime one of those games, and the series is maybe done in 5 instead of 6. So I don't know. It was a hell of a run, but it's certainly not surprising the outcome that happened at all.
So Money, I want you to be real honest with us here, okay? No lying, no nothing. Based on the history you've had with the New York Rangers, the damage they caused to you, you didn't want to see them in the Cup Finals, did you?
You can say it now. It's okay. It's done.
It's fine. We're good now.
No, it's not that I didn't want to see them in the Cup Final, because actually, yeah.
Yes, it is.
Yeah, I didn't want to see them in the Cup Final just because they've not only have they tormented my childhood, they've been tormenting me the last couple of years as well. Before we've come to a realization as a group that this is just who they are and how they play and stuff. So, yes, I did not want to see them in the Cup Final. Also because I had no futures exposures on the Rangers at all. Right. So if they made the finals, then it would not be financially beneficial to me as well. So even though in the end, don't tell anybody I said this, I did want Albert to have some sort of happiness Um, I'm glad that that in the end that they didn't make it. Don't clip that
Fair
though.
enough. Yeah,
Zach, I'm gonna
exactly.
need that clip before we get off the air here.
Yeah. Yeah, that was the one thing I experienced during these playoffs is like, also, I'll just say this, and so many, I'm curious if you're in the same boat. I think we might have discussed this on the show at some point, but there seems to be this weird need for people and the media here in Canada to drum up the narrative that we all need to cheer for each other to bring the Stanley Cup back north of the border. My personal opinion is just fuck that. I would actually rather them all lose and be out in the first round with the Leafs and that be the end of everybody in Canada's season, because otherwise we all experience it. It's like, oh, what happens when the Leafs lose in the first round and Vancouver wins? Well, now I hear it from Canucks fans, and then I hear it from Oilers fans, and then the Jets don't have that kind of luck, but you'd hear it from the Jets fans. So it's just like, no, I don't want to deal with that, because we here in Canada are in this little vacuum of our own, battling with the other fan bases. I'd rather they all lose. So I'm not cheering for anybody in Canada for this. I mean, I know everyone's behind McDavid. He's from my hometown. It would be great to see him win, but I don't want to see him win it in Edmonton. I want to see him win it somewhere else. Maybe some other team that wears blue and white colors in their uniforms. But yeah, that's how I view this stuff. So many. I don't know if it's the same for you.
Well, my rooting interest is predicated on a couple of things, and it's got nothing to do with Canada, right?
Right.
So a couple of things. Number one, I want people around me to be happy, right? So like
Right.
if I've got Oilers fans around me, like and the Canucks are not in it, I would like the Oilers to win, right? Because why wouldn't you want people around you to be happy, right? Yeah. There's that. If the Rangers played I don't know, if the Rangers played Arizona in the Stanley Cup final, right? I would cheer for the Rangers just because it would make Alber happy, right? So
Right.
so there's that. The second thing is that I want generational talent to get their rings, because it drives me nuts hearing about great players whose careers are diminished in the eyes of people because where's your ring? Yeah, you're a great player, but did you get your ring? Right? And I look at a player like Dan Marino, for example, right? I wish Dan Marino got a ring, because in all the discussions of the greatest quarterbacks of all time, Dan Marino is not mentioned because he doesn't have a ring, right? He's not mentioned in the same way. So it would suck if Connor McDavid never got his ring, or the Austin Matthews never got his ring. I was cheering for Alex Ovechkin to get his ring, because
Yeah.
Ovechkin is a generational talent, or was a generational talent, and he's going to break records, but nobody can take anything away from him now because he got his ring, right? So those two are where my rooting interest lies. So I do have Oilers fans in my life, so I would like them to be happy, and I want Connor McDavid to get his ring as well.
All right, fair enough. I think that's fair. If you are in the chat right now, you haven't already, please hit that like button. Make sure to subscribe here to the Edgework channel as well. If you've got questions about the Stanley Cup Finals, we'll make sure to send them in there. We'll try to answer them throughout the course of the show today. Let's dig into the series matchup, the series prices, how we see this one going, as well as we'll give out best bets. We'll do our predictions before we get to game one breakdown, where that price is currently sitting at. So let's get into it here. Stanley Cup Finals 2024. The Edmonton Oilers, the Florida Panthers, head-to-head game one starting Saturday night here. Today is June 5th, so these are the prices as of today. Series price that we're currently seeing courtesy of Pinnacle: Panthers minus 142, the Oilers plus 123. If you're looking to maybe a series spread there, you can find the Panthers minus 1.5 at plus 153, the Oilers plus 1.5 minus 178 right now. These two teams this season, they only went head-to-head twice. You find the Panthers beat the Oilers both times in those matchups, 2-0 against the Oilers this season, but those games were back in November and December there. Alber, when you take a look at this price, you take a look at the way that these two teams match up, What do you make of where the number is currently sitting at? You feel that this one's fair? Do you think that there's still more movement to come ahead of game one on Saturday night?
So I think the number is pretty fair, honestly. Florida should definitely be favored. I have a feeling a few of us are going to be on Florida. I just think this is a potential great mix of styles. And like I kind of mentioned with the Rangers, I was curious how they were going to go at this series. I'm very curious how the Oilers are going to go at this series, because you kind of look at who they've played in the playoffs. They played against the Kings, who wanted to slow them down, and it didn't work. They played against the Canucks, who wanted to slow them down, and it obviously kind of worked, taking them to game 7. And then they played the Stars just with a bunch of depth. And I think that's pretty similar to how the Panthers play. The problem is the Panthers are going to be so comfortable in these style of games that the Oilers have been playing that, just like I said with the Rangers, like I'm very curious if the Oilers say we have the talent to open this up. Let's try to open this up and get Florida into games they're not necessarily comfortable with. So again, it's kind of like the last series where like I'm not getting involved pre-series, and I do want to see kind of how the style the Oilers want to play is going to come out against the Panthers. Because again, if they just play these 2-1, 3-1 games every night, like I think there's a chance this could be the Panthers in a short series. But it's just hard to know right now. But I don't like the matchup if they just continue. If they play, basically, if they think they can play this series the way they played against the Canucks or the way they played it against Dallas, like I think Florida could win this in 5. But I think they do kind of just need to say, look, we're going to open this up. We're going to take our chances that McDavid, Draisaitl, Kane, Nugent Hopkins, like all this top end talent, which the Panthers are good, but they don't have those elite players aside from like Kachuk to the degree that the Oilers do. I would put it in their hands and say, look, go win us a cup. We know we're going to allow some goals, but you guys need to score us a little more, because they need to take the Panthers out of their comfort zone here.
So, Money, how do you think the Oilers are will approach this to try to take the Oilers out of the Panthers out of their comfort zone?
Yeah, I mean, one thing that the Oilers have shown us through the regular season and into the playoffs here is that they're very comfortable playing any style, right? So, yes, they played the Canucks, they played the Kings. Both teams tried to slow them down, and the Oilers eventually got comfortable in those series, and they started they started playing the way that that they needed to play, that got them here. Against the Panthers, it's a really tough series. I'm trying to remember a series where it was as much of a coin flip as this one is, and I'm having a tough time thinking of something like that, right? So it's going to be a really tight series. I think that one thing I have a lot of confidence in the Oilers now that in previous years I didn't, is that they're very resilient in the sense that they are okay with playing the grinding games. I don't think that that's going to be their strategy going into the series. I think that I agree with Matt that they're going to need to push the pace. I think that they recognize that as well. So I think they will try to. It's just a matter of if they're successful in that regard, right? So I think that it's tough series, right? I do have value on the Oilers just because it is such a coin flip series for me. But I do have confidence that the Oilers, as they've shown throughout the playoffs, that they will be able to make the adjustments that they do need to make.
I'm curious here, so Money, in terms of the goaltending. I refer to you here just because you've been our goaltending kind of expert analyst, however you want to put it, throughout the course of the season and into last year as well. But we know how you feel about Stuart Skinner. I feel like in each of these series for the Oilers, he's had an opportunity where the other guy isn't going to be leaps and bounds ahead of him in the series. And I'm not trying to put any disrespect on Jake Ottinger, but we saw times of him becoming human throughout the last couple of series here that the Stars team played, where it wasn't maybe necessarily for the whole series that he was in, but spots here and there where you just went, oh, that's not the Ottinger we expected to be in these playoffs, or we thought he might be in these playoffs. And it kind of levels the playing field for a guy like Stuart Skinner on the other end and gives an opportunity to guys like McDavid, Draisaitl, etc. When you look at this series against this Panthers team, how they play as a whole, how they buy in defensively. It's going to be hard enough for the Oilers to kind of crack through that, but I understand where you guys are both saying where things could even out just based on the star power that you have on the Oilers, kind of overcoming some of the lack thereof on the Panthers. I have a huge discrepancy myself that I see when it comes to the goaltending matchup between Bobrovsky and Stuart Skinner here. Do you see this being a big problem in this series for this Oilers team, having to overcome a guy like Skinner? And it's not to say that he played terribly in the series against the Stars. He actually kind of had figured it out for a decent amount of time there. And if you watched Game 6, I mean, he was pretty dialed in at that point. But just those two teams going head to head, when it comes down to the goalie matchup, does this pose a big issue for the Oilers throughout 7 games, not just a 1-game situation?
Maybe. The thing is that with Stuart Skinner at this point, you kind of know what you're gonna get, right? In the sense that he's not better than Bobrovsky. He wasn't better than Ottinger. You know that there's a mismatch in goal. Pretty much whoever the Oilers play, right? But you also know that Stuart Skinner is one of those one of those glue guys that we've talked about in the dressing room, right? Where he has the room where guys do want to play for him, and that's a very important intangible when it comes down to goaltending. It is a different style of play, and you do play we've talked about this ad nauseum. You do play differently with the goaltender that you have. So at this point, pretty much starting in Game 6, second period of the second period of Game 6 of the Canucks series, the Oilers have kind of bought in again to Stuart Skinner and the way that they need to play in front of him. Yes, they've lost it here and there for certain periods of time, but in the end, they have reverted back. So this is why I feel confident in the Oilers, because not only do they know what they have in Stuart Skinner, they also understand that the way that they need to play in front of him. And when they haven't done that, what happens to them? And we saw that when they gave up that 2-goal lead against the Stars as well, when they pretty much lost the way that they were supposed to play. So Stuart Skinner, he's a gamer. He's one of those guys that maybe he will give up a bad goal here and there. He'll give up a goal behind the goal line. But one thing that we've seen from him is that he's got that ability that really you can't really quantify, in the sense that when you're down 2-0 in a really big game, he's probably not going to give up that third goal, right?
The Freddie Anderson goal.
Yeah, exactly. And something like that is really tough to quantify. And the guys do play differently in front of him. So yes, he's better than Bobrovsky, but I do think that he is he has a he gets a bad rap. And I think that a lot of it, I get it. You only see the highlights of the bad goals, but I think a lot of it is undeserved when you really watch him play and you watch his style, and you watch how he sometimes fights through in certain games and situations.
Well, there's a pretty good support of all good. I was just gonna say there's pretty good support there of Skinner, but Alber, I was curious your thoughts on watching on the other side. You just got to watch a goalie matchup between Shesterkin and Bobrovsky. Is this going to be a case of immovable object for the Florida Panthers in net for them?
So I don't know if it's a case of that. I think this kind of goes back to part of why I certainly lean to Florida in this series, is you kind of look at how Skinner's played as of late, and it's second nature as a team, as a coach, to look at it and go, okay, he's been a lot better while we've just played this super defensive style. He's looked good now. We just got through Dallas, who's obviously a really good team, playing this style. The problem is Florida just plays this style better than they do. So I do think it obviously makes sense from the defensive standpoint, right? Like, cover around the front of the net, just kind of hold on. Like, Skinner will play well enough to get us there. The problem is Florida's just, I think, better at that style of game than they are. So while I do think it'll obviously lead to them allowing more goals, like I don't think the Oilers can win a series where every game is 2-1, 3-1 like they did just against Dallas, who by the end, even though they were dominating like the pace of play, like they looked gassed by the end. And it's like Vancouver just wasn't at that same level, and LA obviously not at that same level. I just think Florida does what Edmonton will try to do if they play the same way they get against Dallas, just better. And it's like I kind of saw this with like the Rangers against Florida, where for the first couple of games, it did seem like the Rangers were trying to play the same way against Florida they did against Carolina. That just didn't work. I'm worried about the Oilers doing the same thing and saying, look, this is what got us here. We're going to do the same thing. And it's just not going to work, I don't think, if they try to play the same way against Florida.
Okay, boys, I want to transition here into best bets for this series. We'll dig into some of those. I want to answer questions from the chat as well, but there's one that I was kind of curious about because I was trying to find some myself and looking into some of these different markets and seeing where prices are currently sitting at, and maybe a different way to attack this. So I'm just going to throw this out there. This is something I saw, something I was coming across, because I feel like for the one side specifically, it's probably the better way to approach it. And that would be, if you're interested here, and so money specifically, because you're saying you see the value on the Oilers. If you see that value on the Oilers to win the Cup final, is it not a better way to approach it to bet Connor McDavid, Conn Smythe at plus 199, which we can see over at Pinnacle? And the reason I'm asking this and proposing that is because I feel like, and maybe I'm wrong, so correct me if I am, but I feel like if you're going to have the Oilers win this Cup, it's going to be, it's a voted on award. It's the writers going in there and voting on this. Do you think that they're really not going to give Connor McDavid the Conn Smythe based on everything he did, the way he played? And even, I know that this is just about the playoffs, but looking back to how they dragged this team into the playoff spot from down in the dumps to a coach being fired into this position and how good he's been throughout his entire career. He wins this one. There's no guarantee he wins a second, and the voters aren't going to give him the Conn Smythe Award. You can find that plus 199 at Pinnacle. You find the Oilers to win the series plus 123. Would that not be the better way to go? Or do you actually see other opportunities for people on this Oilers team to actually jump ahead and win that Conn Smythe there? So money.
Yeah, so full disclosure, as soon as the series prices came out, I did bet Connor McDavid to win the Conn Smythe. I think that that's the way to do it. It is a lot of time voters. It does come down to a legacy award. Connor McDavid doesn't have to be outstanding in order to win this award. He does have to be outstanding for the Oilers to win this series, right? So therefore, chances are he will be outstanding if the Oilers have won the Stanley Cup, which means that he will get the Conn Smythe, right? So that was kind of my thinking. He has taken some money in the market now, but I still feel that that's the best way to go about it. You have guys who, I mean, Leon Draisaitl would have to be like out of this world for in this finals for them to win. I do, of course, have a small flyer on Stuart Skinner as well, but that was just price based. Realistically, it's not going to be Skinner's award. It's not going to be Evan Bouchard's award. Possibly Draisaitl, but most likely, if it's the Oilers, it's going to be McDavid.
Alber, do you see any other way where anyone else can jump ahead here and surpass McDavid for that Conn Smythe, specifically on the Oilers side, I guess?
I don't. And I think the part of it he touched on is if the Oilers are going to win, it's not going to be Connor McDavid having 1 goal and 2 assists in the entire series. Like that's just not going to get it done for him. And it's like, I get it. The award's supposed to be who is the best through the whole playoff. It's McDavid. Make a case and try to convince me that you get a bunch of writers in there, like you said, and that this isn't going to become a narrative legacy kind of thing. Like it is for this guy. I don't see any way that they win the Cup and he doesn't win the Conn Smythe. So that I would certainly be betting that if I was wanting to bet the Oilers. Yes.
Okay, let's go into best bets here. I'm curious if you guys have any. I'll go through yours and then we'll answer some of the questions here in the chat and see your guys' thoughts on those. So Money, let's start with you. You said you found some value on the Oilers there. If people have been paying attention, then hopefully you're able to pick up a couple of things at this point. But value on the Oilers as of right now. So Money already bet McDavid to win Conn Smythe. Alber kind of leaning towards that direction as well. But do you have any other best bets for us here? So Money, whether it be on the series, if it's total games, or if it's in some of the different markets that we've kind of approached before, leading series in points, anything like that.
Yeah, so I still think that there's value on a Connor McDavid to win the Conn Smythe. Basically, if I view this as a coin flip series, and I know that if the Oilers win, it's going to be McDavid's award. That means I'm getting plus 190 on a coin flip, right? So there's value there. The other thing I was looking at too is sorry, I just gotta pull it up here. Yeah, my computer's freezing right now, so that's great. But there was head to heads with Connor McDavid and Matthew Tkachuk for most points, which I would like to bet Connor McDavid, but unfortunately I can't bring up the pricing right now. So that's the way that I want to look at, because as I agree with Matt, because if the Oilers are going to win this series, they do have to take a more offensive approach, which means that of course Connor McDavid will get his points, and I think that Matthew Tkachuk, depending on how Paul Maurice wants to play this, but we could see him in more of a trying to match up against McDavid or against Draisaitl as well. So, and Florida has more scoring depth throughout their lineup, so I think they'd be more comfortable with relying on secondary scoring to get them through this series than what the Oilers would be. So, in that instance, I would like the Connor McDavid to have more points prop. If I could pull it up, it'd be great.
Yeah, no worries. If it does come up, you let us know and we'll come back to you on that. Alber, are there any other best bets that you're looking to add into this series? Any other series prices that you've taken? Anything else that you're going to be looking at ahead of game one, or are you going to be approaching this one more game by game?
So I think I'm going to be approaching this more game by game. I think there's a good chance that I end up on the under in game one. Again, for what I talked about, the Oilers came off playing the style of low event hockey. I think that's probably the route they're going to go, at least to start the series. The Panthers, that's obviously what they're going to want to do to slow down McDavid and Draisaitl. I'm going to play this kind of the same route I did earlier in the playoffs, where if you like Edmonton, I'm betting McDavid, Conn Smythe. If I like Florida, I do think there's a chance that the Oilers don't change anything up. They play right into a style that Florida wants them to play. And I think if you tell me the series ends in 5 games, I tell you that the Panthers probably win. So if I like Florida, I'm playing some -1.5, -2.5 on the series spread. But yeah, if I like the Oilers, I'm certainly playing McDavid, Conn Smythe.
All right. A couple of best bets that I saw. Oh, so go ahead, So Money.
No. I was just going to mention in the chat, there was a cup handoff to Ryan Nugent-Hopkins.
Yeah.
I think that's a great look. Reason being is that you have to look at the personality of the captain who's receiving the award, right? And Connor McDavid is he's a very dialed in person, in the sense of he knows what's happening around him, right? A lot of times, and what so I think that usually the guy that gets the cup first has been with the team for a while, or there's some sort of narrative around that. Nugent Hopkins has paid his dues with the Oilers from since the time he was drafted, right? So I think that handing off to RNH first is certainly a good look. He's at I know that it was quoted there as at plus 750. I do see a plus 650 right now. So I think that would be an interesting look for sure.
also, just for everyone out there wondering, if you are watching right now, then you should be having your sports books open while these best bets are coming out, because we are doing this live in real time. And as we started the show, we went McDavid Conn Smythe at plus 199. As we started to discuss McDavid and the route that it might take for the Oilers to win, it went to plus 192, and now down to plus 186 over at Pinnacle. So moving in real time here as we discuss this, giving out best bets and everything like that. Discuss the Ryan Nugent-Hopkins Cup handoff there. There's two more questions that I'm curious your guys' thoughts on, and maybe if you have different ways to approach this one. This one might actually be best for Russ if he was on here, so maybe we'll get him to tweet something out about it as well, in addition to your guys' thoughts. But our friend, the right wing fan 23, says thoughts on Gustav Forsling to record 3+ shots in every game at 125-1. Now, the reason I bring up Russ there is because the last couple of games that Russ did give out best bets for, I believe Forsling was on his card each time over 2.5 shots on goal. I followed Russ along with those, and we were able to add some money to our pockets there thanks to that. But 3+ shots on goal for Gustav Forsling, and every game 125-1. Alber, I don't know if this is something that you're familiar with the player props, something that you've worked on, but any thoughts on this price here that we currently see here right now?
Yeah, to be honest, shots on goal just aren't something that I've spent much time digging into, so my insight's not going to be very helpful. But I, as far as a style of play standpoint, again, I think if the Oilers' just game plan is to pack the middle, they're going to allow a lot of point shots. So from like a how does the game play out standpoint, I think it does make some sense.
Any thoughts for you on that?
Not necessarily on the on the prop itself, but so similar to Matt, I do stylistically I can see that. I think that Dallas was a team that needed to generate more from their back end in order to be successful, and they kind of ran out of gas. They were shown to, as the playoffs went on, they didn't really have the defensive depth for in order to take advantage of that. The Canucks couldn't generate from the blue line as well consistently. I do think Florida has that ability. I do have in my Conn Smythe portfolio, I do have some Forsling as well. Again, I don't expect it to win, but it was based on price a week or so ago, and also it makes sense for if the Panthers are going to win this series, it does make sense for them to get production from the back end. And as much as it pains me as a Canucks fan, Forsling has been he's just been outstanding. So I think that Florida has the ability to generate from the back in the way that Dallas wanted to do, but they couldn't. So I do think that there is an avenue there for Forsling for sure.
People are firing away a couple more, so I'll keep asking you guys them if you have any thoughts, or if you're not able to answer them, that's fine. But Jordan bringing up here, Tkachuk 3 shots on goal, 3+ shots on goal every game, plus 1,000. So money back to you. Sorry, Alber, you deemed yourself.
That's fine. I was gonna say the exact same thing I did last time, but I have nothing to add. Yeah. Kick over to So Money.
Yeah, fair enough. So Money.
I just worry about Tkachuk's deployment. I know that obviously they're going to need offensive production from him, but Paul Maurice is also a outside the box kind of thinker as well. So I would it's tough for me to quantify that, because I would want to see how Maurice wants to use Tkachuk first, and unfortunately for me to see that first, I can't bet that prop before the series starts, right? So I'm more curious to see how especially with games 1 and 2 how Maurice wants to play his top guys, matching up against McDavid and Draisaitl first.
All right, and final one here. I guess we'll go back to So Money on this, but Jordan also bringing up Skinner 20+ saves in each game, plus 118.
Each game, that's tough, because you just know that there's going to be a game where the Oilers give up like 10 or 15 shots in a game, right? You just know that that's coming just based um, on the way that they have shown that they're able to shut it down. So 20 is tough. Possibly it gets there, but yeah, it's too tough for me to endorse that because there's like the Oilers can go on either end of the pendulum here, right? Like we've seen them give up 34 shots, 40 shots and just hang on for the win. We've also seen them give up 10, 15 shots um, and play the defensive style that they need to play as well. So I'll have to pass on that, but it's certainly an interesting look there.
All right,
So real quick,
Alber, any thoughts on that?
Yeah, so the only thing I do have to add, it's not on that prop in particular. I was looking to see kind of how these shots on goal numbers were priced. I would just say if you're going to bet shot on goal props, be careful because some of these books are not including overtime in that. In their shots on goal numbers. So if you're looking at doing that, because I was looking to see originally like how long it would take, you'd have to like roll it over to get there. And it looks like you'd have to be 7 games, frankly, to get to that 10-1 number. I think I would rather have the Forsling at 125 than Kachuk at 10-1, just based on the style that we're kind of talking about, where I think a lot of point shots are going to come in from Florida and they're just going to kind of battle around the net. At the same time, you could get a couple of rebound hacks right in one, but I do think I would rather have the long shot there. As far as Skinner, I mean, that one's just tougher for me again, given the fact that both of these teams I think are going to come out and want to play low event hockey. Like, would it really shock me if one of these games ended with like 18 shots on the side of Florida? No, not really. So I don't think that last one would be a look. If I was going to bet one of those three, it would be Forsling.
All right, let's get into game one prices here. We'll dig into some of these. Again, if people have questions about game one, make sure to send them in the chat. Hit the like button while you are watching right now. But we'll go run through this, see where the numbers are currently sitting at, and if Matt or So Money have value on either side or have any best bets, any ways that they'd be looking to bet, or maybe some information for how they would be looking to approach game one over the next couple of days and see where these numbers move. So as of right now, we're currently seeing the Florida Panthers hosting game one -131, the Oilers +116, best price available on the other side. And we see total of 5.5 right across the board here right now. So Money, we'll go to you first. What are your thoughts on where we're currently seeing game one pricing at? If you have any value or if you're expecting this number to move at all for the next couple of days.
I think that Matt touched on this earlier too, that there's a style of play element here, right? So like you can, in terms of narratives, you can make a case for both teams come out playing kind of close to the vest. They're not going to open it up. You can also make a case that many times we've seen game ones of series get a little bit chaotic, and then teams kind of settle in as the series progress, and they kind of get a book on each other and how they want to play. I don't know how these teams are going to come out, right? What I do know is that I think that they're pretty evenly matched. So if we get out to a situation where both teams played close to the vest, I have more faith than Matt does on the Oilers being able to play that game. If they come out chaotic, and we're going end to end, I certainly have more faith in the Oilers in that situation, in terms of consistently generating goals. Skinner, we know what we're theoretically going to get from Skinner. He's not going to get a shutout in this game, right? Bobrovsky, I don't know, right? We've seen Bobrovsky come up with some clunkers as well, especially after long rest. So there's a lot of conflicting elements in this game, and because of that, and because I think that the series is closely matched here, I did bet the Oilers in game one, plus 116. They have taken some money, and I think plus 116 is still okay, But I wouldn't go anywhere lower than that though.
Before we lock this in, just in case there is a conflicting head-to-head here, Alber, I'll go to you and just ask you any conflict of interest here on locking in an Oilers plus 116 for game one.
No, I'm good with locking that in before I go.
All
anything
right.
else.
All right, we will do that. Plus 116, best price available. You can find that at a couple different books, including Pinnacle Sportsbook there. So first best bet of the Stanley Cup playoffs will be locked in. We'll recap everything at the very end here as well. But Albert, any other thoughts on this game where we currently see these prices?
Yeah, so I mentioned it before. I think this is gonna sound great. I think the total is also fair. I certainly am leaning to the under. I would definitely not lay minus whatever that was, Zach, minus 124 or something on the over. I'm certainly not going to get involved there. I don't think we're going to get it, but maybe sometime in all this media stuff in the next day or two, you get a little sense of how the Oilers are going to want to play in the series, whether they think they're going to have to just speed it up or whether they talk about this is the style that got us here. This is the style we're going to keep playing. So I'm certainly leaning at the under. Again, I think just kind of the whole feeling out process. I think there's a high chance both these teams are going to play low event hockey. And you get, I think it's plus 115 to have no goal in 10 minutes. Just something like that. I do think there's a chance both these teams come out and it is a long feeling out process in game one. So that's certainly the way I'm leaning, but I have not locked in anything yet. I want to see if we can get kind of any nuggets out of all this press stuff in the next couple of days to see if the Oilers do want to play this or if they say, look, we're going to let our big guys go. We have confidence in Stuart Skinner now. We know that we're going to have to score to win these games. Anything along those lines to kind of help with that. But as of now, I have not locked anything in.
Okay. So there you go. There's our matchups, series prices, breakdowns, best bets, and then game one preview here as well. As for peer predictions here, guys, but I want to get it out of the way. We're going to head into game one here on Saturday night. This series is going to get underway. It is the final series of the 2024 Stanley Cup playoffs. So, Money, go to you. Who is winning and how many games?
I think the Oilers will score 20 power play goals in the series. No, I think Oilers. I'm going to go Oilers in 6.
Okay, Alber, you're on mute there, Alber.
Sorry. Better question is, do the Panthers score a single power play goal in this series? Because the Oilers haven't allowed anything right now.
Yeah.
I think they do, and I think the Panthers win in 6.
I'm going Panthers in 6 here as well. Look, So Money, I know we want to see McDavid get that cup. I know you want to see Matthews get the cup as well as I do, but they'll be doing it together in Toronto in 2 years after the Oilers lose this year. Can't get it done next year, and then they say, you know what, we'll bring him here. We'll bring him to Toronto. Load everything up. Gary Bettman will have changed everything. There's a luxury tax. It'll all be sunshine and rainbows in Toronto.
How are they going to afford that contract once they give Mitch Marner $13.5 million this offseason?
Oh, okay. All right. That's enough of the show. That's enough of the show. As for our best bets for game one, we are looking at the Oilers plus 116. You can find that over in the BetStamp app in the Find Better section as Edgework HQ. Make sure to check that out and sign up at the BetStamp app if you are looking to follow us and see our picks, see how we've done throughout this season, the playoffs, dating back to last year, all of that. But thank you so much to everyone who tuned in here today. We appreciate the support. As always, appreciate the questions, participation, hitting the like button, subscribing to the channel. So Money, Albert, thank you guys for taking the time to do this. As always, I do appreciate you guys hopping on here to help us break this one down. We will see everyone next week to help break down game 2 of this series. Best bets, predictions, previews of the upcoming games after this coming weekend. Enjoy the time off throughout the remainder of the week. Enjoy the game Saturday night, and good luck on your bets.